Attention all my Queen fans and the Renaissance crew. Friday, October 12th, 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Laser Radio will be holding a 2-hour Bohemian Rhapsody movie special in which they'll be playing music from the movie soundtrack, clips from the movie, and chatting with guests in studio, including yours truly. Now, if you want to tune in, all you have to do is go to lasarradio.co.uk/listen. That's lasarradio.co.uk/listen. What is up, Renaissance crew? I'm the original Renaissance man, Devon DaVinci, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Now, this is going to be another video from TierZoo. Now, I was subscribed and a fan of TierZoo ever since, I want to say he released the cat tier video. The man only has maybe about, I'm going to say like 30 videos, and he's gone from 0 to 1 million real quick. So that goes to show the quality of this man's content. One of the videos I'm going to react to is Earth's Worst Balance Patch. Now, anybody that doesn't know anything about TierZoo, in which case I need to ask you to come out of the damn cave that you've been hanging in for like the past year. And what he does is he makes videos about life, animals, nature, things like that. And he makes analogies to video games. So he'll talk about like the defense of a turtle or the attack power of a shark or something like that, and he puts statistics to it as if it's a video game. And it's such a like interesting idea. It's almost crazy that nobody's thought of it yet. Like, I thought of doing something like this with workouts, like creating a stat sheet for a person like water training. Like if I was a personal trainer, I would have a stat sheet for my clients as if it was a video game. So it's like you gain +2 arm strength with today's workout and stuff like that. But anyway, let's go ahead and check this out and see what it has to offer.
We've covered a lot of topics on this channel, but pretty much all of it has been only related to the Anthropocene meta. So today I'm kicking off a new mini-series which seeks to give an overview of how the meta has evolved across all the previous expansions. Today's episode is about the Triassic period, an expansion sandwiched between two of the most controversial and meta-shifting balance patches the game has ever seen. Alright, so at the end of the Permian expansion came the balance patch 1.2.1, known better by its community-given name, The Great Dying. This update was heralded by one of the largest volcanic eruptions in the history of the game, which led to a cascade of other world events that drastically increased the difficulty of the game on every single server. Spawn rates for plants, water, and even essentials like oxygen were at record lows, and as a result, around 90% of the player base quit. Just before the Great Dying, the all-powerful reptile faction had split into two separate groups, the Therapsids and the Archosaurs. Each of these guilds had started to innovate in their own unique ways in an attempt to claim the top spots in the meta. And so when the balance patch hit, the Triassic arms race began.
Wow.
So let's take a look at how the two warring factions innovated going into the Triassic. Therapsid players had already been experimenting with new builds before the Great Dying. They already had builds like the Dimetrodon and Gorgonopsid destroying the competition. Mobility-based builds were still in their infancy and weren't well optimized at all, but these two were the most mobile at the time. While this allowed them to body their competition at the time, it was the cooperative survivalist strategy of Lystrosaurus build that carried the Therapsid faction through the balance.
I misspoke here. This animal is not Lyriptosaurus or Lystrip, the word, but rather the ancestor of Lyriptosaurus named Dictodon. I believe this is how it's pronounced, Dictodon. Sorry for the mistake.
Lystrosaurus was able to deal with the extreme difficulty of the Great Dying because they could hide underground to avoid the atmospheric changes and could use their tusks to access loot contained in the heavily armored plant roots. But aside from them, just about every other Therapsid build became obsolete during the Great Dying. After the difficulty was lowered again, the Therapsid faction put most of their evolution points into refining their most successful builds into the best versions they could be. They unlocked traits like fur, warm blood, milk, and whiskers during this time, laying the groundwork for some of the extremely important builds much later in the game's timeline.
Okay,
however,
so they turned into mammals.
During the Jurassic expansion itself, the Therapsid faction didn't really go for any of the riskier, more wild changes to their builds. Meanwhile, the Archosaurs chose a different route. At the start of the expansion, they were heavily unfavored in the Therapsid matchup. Their only option was to try some of the more drastic changes to their game plan in order to keep up with the competition. A group of them elected to compete directly with the Therapsids, and spec'd into similar land tank abilities. The only difference was, these players also put a few points into aquatic abilities, such as holding their breath and diving, which gave them a place to retreat if things got tough. While those players battled the Therapsids directly, Archosaurs set 2 more strategies.
So I'm wondering if that's where...
The first strategy was to put hardly any...
I'm wondering if that's where like Mosasauruses and stuff like that came from. Or maybe whales or something, because I know that like the ancestors to a lot of sea creatures were those like 4-legged creatures that walked on Earth.
Points at all into HP, and instead invest heavily into upgrades related to skin aerodynamics, which allowed them to be the second faction in the history of the game to ever unlock flight. This worked because they didn't really need HP, seeing as the only other aerial builds were lower weight class insects like beetles and grasshoppers. Their massive mobility advantage was all they needed. Around the same time, another group of Archosaurs started to use an extremely off-meta technique that had never been done effectively. They switched from quadrupedalism to bipedalism. Obviously, this control scheme is more difficult to master, but it does allow for some very unique builds, and gives access to some extremely powerful advanced techniques. Freeing up your front limbs allows them to become more specialized for other uses. Digging, grabbing, tool use, the possibilities are endless. In addition, the height advantage is really useful for countering stealth, especially against builds that use tall grass, shrubs, or other foliage for cover or camouflage. This one change allowed the Archosaurs to gain a massive advantage against the Therapsids, although at this point, they collectively changed their gamer tags from Archosaurs to Dinosaurs. By the end of the Triassic expansion, dinosaurs, combined with pterosaurs and protocrocodilians, were absolutely dominating every server in the game. The first dinosaur builds to make waves in the meta were Herosaurus and Eoraptor. However, the real breakout came with the Coelophysis build. By trading a little of their power and HP, they gained traits that really put the nail in the coffin for the former champions of the Permian meta. Therapsids at this point had all but abandoned their former mains, such as the Placerius and Thranaxodon, and were now trying their best to just play small survivalist classes that could avoid the dinosaurs. However, this strategy did not save them from the new Coelophysis build. Their high mobility allowed them to keep up with these smaller builds, and their long necks and slender snouts allowed them to reach through barriers and into cover. At this point, the Therapsid guild had dissolved, having been completely eliminated from every niche they'd once held. A few loyalists remained, though, hiding underground or in trees during the day.
The comments you have over the damn creatures as
they adopted a new guild
he's doing this is funny as hell.
Dinosaurs were easily just as overpowered and abundant as the Therapsids which had come before them. So by now you're probably wondering, why didn't the devs nerf them in the same way that they did at the end of the previous expansion? And the answer is, they tried. At the end of the Triassic, another extinction patch was rolled out, but I think the devs were afraid to use more of the harsh nerfing methods because of how drastically the player base had dropped after the Great Dying. And so instead of shaking things up in a way that would let off-meta builds steal niches away from the top tiers, what really ended up happening was that the dominance of the dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and crocodilians was only further cemented. So while the Permian extinction was controversial because of how badly it nerfed the top builds, the Triassic extinction was controversial because of how little it hurt the top builds. Starting here and lasting for the longest continuous time period, dinosaurs would own every top tier niche in the game, branching out into pack hunters, solo tanks, team defense builds, and unstoppable DPS builds. We'll talk about those expansions as well as the ones that came before and after in other videos. But since we've just about covered everything about the progression of the Triassic metagame, that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, and if you've got a time period, biome, or animal you'd like analyzed in a video, leave a suggestion in the comments of this video, or better yet, become a patron on Patreon. Patrons work directly with me and offer suggestions and critiques during the video creation process itself, and their support is why I've been able to consistently put out content like this.
That's cool. So again, just to be on a heads up, if you have any type of creatures that you want him to review or make a video about, the best way it seems would be to join his Patreon and give him a request, because usually people tend to put priority on people that go an extra step to show that they support the channel. That being said, be sure to follow me on Twitter. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm a huge dinosaurs fan. As a matter of fact, I have a video game that I would like to do a playthrough of if my computer's acting right, and that is a game that's still in a game that's still in kind of like a beta stage. It's called The Isle. It's an online game where you play as dinosaurs. You try to survive in a world with other people playing as dinosaurs, and you have to progress from like smaller creatures to the larger creatures. So at some point when that's done, I'll go ahead and upload a video about that, and I hope to see you guys hopefully like logging in and playing it, because it's a lot funner when there's an entire server that's full with people that are playing as these dinosaurs, because it makes the game absolutely crazy. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Be sure to check out TierZoo. And if you don't know how, of course, there's always an original link in the description box down below. And always keep a tag at the end of the video that you can click on, and that takes you to their channel. I'm going to go ahead and move on to something else. I'm the original Renaissance man, Devon DaVinci. I hope to see you there. I'm giving you the deuces. Peace.